What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. Today we'll be diving into the best exotic weapons that you should be using in the final shape. The PvE sandbox is an ever-changing thing, and if you want to stay at the top of your game when you're jumping into those end-game activities, then you'll need to make sure you're utilizing the best of the best when it comes to exotic weapons. There are 119 exotic weapons in Destiny 2. While each and every one of these provides its own unique benefits, we'll be focusing on the top 20 exotics that provide the highest level of performance. We start off our list with the Osteo Striga. This exotic has seen a number of nerfs over the past few seasons, but it remains to be one of the best SMGs to clear through ads with. It's not as potent as it once was, but the ability to automatically reload this weapon's magazine while inflicting poison onto your enemies is a tremendous benefit. SMGs get barrier champion duties thanks to this season's artifact, which means those poisoning effects can be used against barrier champions, which really amplifies this weapon's versatility. Coming in at number 19 is the Final Warning. This strand sidearm just got a new catalyst, granting it bonus damage against marked targets, as well as the ability to reload a portion of its magazine. This exotic already dished out a ton of damage against targets from close range, thanks to its unraveling abilities. So with an increase in damage and the ability to instantly restore ammo, this sidearm has been kicked into overdrive. With sidearms getting the nod towards unstoppable champions this season, the Final Warning will be a great option for Lost Sectors, Grandmasters, and other in-game content. Up next at number 18 is the Sunshot. It's not as dominating as it was last season, when solar weapons got some insane bonuses, but this hand cannon still packs a punch, and it will quickly decimate large groups of enemies. Hand cannons also have the ability of stunning overload champions right now, which brings the value of this exotic way up. Coming in at number 17 is the Trinity Ghoul, another exotic that has tremendous ad clear potential. This bow drops down lightning that will strike through large groups of enemies. It's not as strong against tankier enemies, but against rank and file targets, this bow melts. Trinity Ghoul performs the best when you're amplified, which at one point limited its use. But now that we have Prismatic builds available, you can easily become amplified through so many different routes, which has substantially increased this weapon's value. And now we move on to number 16, the Thorn. If you like the Osteo Striga, you'll love the Thorn, especially after unlocking its catalyst. This hand cannon poisons enemies, and it creates remnants on final blows, which can overflow the magazine. The biggest hang up about this exotic is that those remnants don't come to you. You'll have to run out and pick them up in order to refill the magazine. But even with that being the case, this weapon is an amazing ad clear option, and with hand cannons handling overload champions this season, the Thorn has never been in a better position. Up next at number 15, we have the Gjallarhorn. This rocket launcher is known for its Wolfpack rounds. This exotic doesn't work the same as it did in Destiny 1, but that's not really a bad thing, since it now amplifies the damage of other players' rocket launchers. It'll still crush most any single target, and it's great against large groups, but with its ability to boost the whole team's damage, it's really turned into a much more well-rounded exotic when it comes to damage phases. Up next we have the Witherhoard at number 14. The Witherhoard is a unique exotic grenade launcher that releases blight orbs on impact, causing damage over time. Its ability to control choke points and deal sustained damage makes it an invaluable option in so many different activities. One of the most interesting benefits of the Witherhoard is that it triggers the bonus damage benefits by the Malfeasance and Wishender. Next on our list is the Izanagi's Burden, coming in at number 13. The Izanagi's Burden is a pinnacle exotic sniper rifle, famous for its honed edge perk. This allows shots to be charged up for high burst damage, and it can be combined easily with a number of top tier legendary heavy weapons, like the Apex Predator or the Edge Transit. Because of its ability to deal out so much burst damage, it's become a staple for DPS phases in raids and dungeons, no matter what the meta is. Up next is another weapon that is always going to perform well, the Lament, coming in at number 12. The Lament is a devastating exotic sword, capable of tearing through enemy shields. Even though this exotic saw a recent nerf, this exotic grants an enormous damage bonus to its wielder, while also healing. It's one of the best weapons for up close damage, and it's a perfect option against several dungeon and raid bosses. Even though we've seen a number of strong legendary swords enter into the sandbox, the Lament remains to be one of the best, especially since it can pierce barrier shields. The Lumina, or Lumina, is our next weapon, dropping in at number 11. This is an exotic hand cannon focused on support, and it's damn good at it. This weapon is literally the reverse of the Thorn. It allows players to heal and empower allies with these noble rounds. Its benevolent abilities makes it an essential weapon to use in team-oriented gameplay, providing one of the highest damage bonuses in the game. And with hand cannons getting the ability to stun overload champions this season, the Lumina has never been in a better position. Wishender is up next, breaking into the top 10. Wishender is an exotic bow that grants true sight, allowing you to see through walls. This allows you to spot out your enemies without having to expose yourself. Its piercing arrows can damage multiple targets at once and will pierce through barrier shields. And as we mentioned earlier, it does deal bonus damage to taken enemies, making it ideal for Grandmaster Nightfalls and other in-game content. Coming in at number 9 is the new hunter-inspired sniper rifle called the Still Hunt. This is one of the most powerful weapons in Destiny 2 right now. It'll absolutely shred through most any raid and dungeon boss. After consecutive hits or collecting orbs, you get massively buffed shots that are just like a hunter's golden gun. Even though the Still Hunt fits better into the hands of a hunter, it can be used on any class, giving everyone a great option at some top tier damage. Up next at number 8 is another exotic that is great at dealing out a ton of damage, and that is the Thunderlord. It's an exotic heavy machine gun that refuses to back down. It has the ability to summon lightning strikes, and it continuously refills its own magazine. And even when that magazine is empty, it has Feeding Frenzy, allowing you to reload much faster. Its high rate of fire makes it a devastating option to use against groups of enemies, champions, and bosses. With its ability to disrupt enemies and stun overload champions, the Thunderlord has become one of the most reliable day 1 weapons to use in most any raid or dungeon. Coming up next at number 7 is the Navigator. This is an exotic trace rifle that will grant you and teammates with woven mail while severing your enemies, giving you a 40% damage resistance bonus while severed enemies deal 40% less damage, which really comes in handy during endgame level content. With the added benefit of creating grapple points, this is one of the most dominating strand weapons in Destiny. The only downside about this weapon is that it is locked behind the Ghost of the Deep dungeon. Up next we have the Buried Bloodline, coming in at number 6. The Buried Bloodline is an exotic rocket sidearm, so it deals a ton of damage just like the Call and the Indebted Kindness. It also grants Devour, and it weakens targets, so it can really give you an advantage in a lot of different activities. This exotic has gotten even stronger with the new seasonal artifact mods, which grant bonus damage and an overshield. The most unappealing aspect of the Buried Bloodline is that just like the Navigator, it too is locked behind a dungeon, but this one, the Warlord's Ruin. And dungeon exotics just aren't known for having very high drop rates, so you might have to devote a good amount of time into getting this one. If you're in need of something to give you a burst of energy through those late night hours while farming for the Buried Bloodline, or the Navigator, or any other exotic out there, then try checking out some of the amazing supplement drinks provided by Advanced GG, like their newest flavor called Orange Creamsicle, which not only tastes great, but it actually helps keep you focused. With the use of the promo code, which is down in the description, you'll be able to enjoy that orange cream at 10% off. So be sure to give that a look-see. We now dive into the top 5, and we have the Tractor Cannon to start us off. It's an exotic shotgun that debuffs enemies by 30%, and it disrupts those enemies, reducing their overall damage output, while also stunning overload champions. With its ability to increase the entire team's damage, the Tractor Cannon is an invaluable exotic against any close-range enemies and bosses, and it's one of my favorite weapons to use as a solo player. Up next we have the Outbreak Perfected at number 4. It's an exotic pulse rifle that creates Siva nanite swarms on precision hits and final blows. Its ability to generate additional damage over time makes it effective against both single targets and groups of enemies. It's also a great exotic to swap over to for added boss damage once you've ran out of special and heavy ammo. With a recent buff in damage, along with the added benefit of piercing barrier shields, the Outbreak Perfected is performing better than it ever has. Moving into our top 3 exotics, we have the Dragon's Breath, an exotic rocket launcher that unleashes a napalm canister upon detonation. Its lingering fire effects create hazardous zones that will scorch and ignite enemies, making it great for area denial, crowd control, and even boss damage. And because it ignites enemies, it'll also stun unstoppable champions. One of the biggest benefits to using the Dragon's Breath is its ease of use. You can drop a rocket into a group of enemies and completely turn the other way, having the reassurance that those enemies are going to be toast, allowing you to use your other weapons to focus on other enemies elsewhere, and then swap back over to the Dragon's Breath to get increased damage. Up next, coming in at number 2, is the Graviton Lance, a 2-burst exotic pulse rifle that deals a ton of damage. It has Vorpal and Turnabout, so you're getting bonus damage and survivability out of one weapon. This weapon causes targets to explode on death. It also creates these black holes that deal out bonus damage to nearby targets. With all the void-focused artifact mods, plus the ability to pierce barrier shields, the Graviton Lance has become an even more dominating force than we've ever seen it be in the past. We now turn our attention to the number 1 best exotic weapon to use in the final shape, and that is the Malfeasance. Even though it can be a pain in the ass to acquire, it's more than worth the effort because this weapon's bullets attach to enemies and will detonate after stacking 5 of these burrowing rounds. Its unique ability to damage enemies over time gives this weapon a lot of burst damage potential, which has made it a great exotic to use alongside the Lucky Pants. This weapon deals bonus damage to taken enemies, and with its catalyst, it deals bonus damage to bosses and champions. It's also one of only 3 primary exotic weapons that's able to stun unstoppable champions, the other 2 being the Wishkeeper and the Devil's Ruin. With its ability to handle champions and deal out a ton of damage against bosses, the Malfeasance is an absolute monster of an exotic, rightfully securing its position as number 1. And with that, we've now completed our list of the top 20 best exotic weapons that you should be using in the final shape. Did your favorite exotic not make it on today's list? Let us know what it is and why you think it should have been included. Let us know down in the comments below. Thank you as always for checking out today's video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated and both really do help support the channel. If you're just getting started in Destiny and need some help getting a better build put together, then be sure to check out my Mobalytics link that's down in the description, where you'll be able to find a ton of great end-game builds. If you're a new Light Guardian who's just starting your journey, or if you're a battle-hardened veteran just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link that's also down in the description and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.